Hello, the channel. We're back again. Hope everyone's well. Back to talk about Celtic. So, Celtic are back this weekend, back on Saturday. We ran a preview before talking about Brendan Rodgers being back, and this is the follow up event. So, I'm going to go through, have a wee chat about Celtic, have a chat about what's happened, etc., and then have a look at some lineups for this weekend as well. First things first, we need to go in here and show you something which has happened. So I've done the unthinkable and I've actually sold some Celtic cards. So where are you? Cards sold. Why is it not showing up here? This is not the best system. Give me a wee second. So I flipped it into offers received and something like this happened. So this is a big talking point. This is where I want to start the video. So yeah, I've sold some Celtic cards. This never ever happens. Never happens. If anybody actually follows me, I just don't sell Celtic cards, but it's happened and I've sold somebody. So let's talk through it. I'd actually listed Greg Taylor and I'd listed Starfelt. So there's some reasons for that. Greg Taylor, I listed him at a profit. So there is a bit of talk just now about transfers and things. I'll come back to that in a wee minute. And also, Starfelt, when the game was on at the weekend, he wasn't in the squad. There's a lot of talk, even the commentators saying that he was linked potentially with a move away. Obviously, there maybe been a bit sensational there and all that type of stuff. But anyway, I'd listed Taylor, I'd listed Starfelt, I'd listed them at quite high prices, I would have thought. I woke up the next day and Flow State had decided to cross my palms with some Ethereum. So always a tough decision. But I think in this occasion, with Rodgers coming in, with the window still being open, what's happened, I decided to take it. Don't go all going into 2 minutes into the video and selling your Starfelts or whatever. Please watch on and I'll explain this decision as well. So back to the old gallery in terms of cards. Everybody obviously knows Celtic collection pretty well. I've actually added in Stephen Welsh. 2 reasons for that. We also stole Starfelt's Rare as well. I've got Carter Vickers. I've got Iwata Defender cards. I've got loads of different options, and I just made a decision on Starfelt. Although I did keep the limited ones. So I've added in Welsh for partly collection side, and I thought he played pretty well against Wolves as well. So 40 quid, under 23 option if you get some injuries. Rocco Vata I'd added in recently. Rocco Vata is really highly rated in the academy. Actually some talk of some moves away, so already eyes on him from outside Celtic, which is quite interesting. Apart from that, been quite stagnant obviously for a wee while. All the sort of same guys in terms of the collection. So what I'm going to do is specifically talk about squads. We're going to do a run through the squad, have a chat again about Celtic, and then we'll have a wee look at some lineups for this weekend and onwards, connection with this year as well. So first thing to point out or discuss is the goalkeeper position. No movements in whatsoever in terms of the goalkeeper department. When Rodgers was asked about Joe Hart, he was talking about, we're not expecting him to be Ederson with the ball at his feet. And I might even mention this in the last video as well. I don't really, even if there is a goalkeeper comes in now, definitely won't be starting against Ross County at the weekend. There was some talk about Livakovic and Celtic potentially hijacking that move to Fenerbahce. I have to say, if Celtic pull that off, I will be absolutely delighted as a Celtic fan, because everyone, Sorare, I think now knows Livakovic, Croatian goalkeeper, brilliant for Zagreb. I just think he's agreed to Fenerbahce and they're just waiting until obviously Champions League qualifiers are all done. But in terms of Joe Hart's side of things, well, under contract until the end of the season. Siegrist started the game against Bilbao tonight, but don't be too spooked about that. So tonight, when I'm recording this video, Celtic playing Bilbao. It's James Forrest's testimonial game. And Rodgers said there'll be 2 teams, one in one half and one in the other. So I don't think you can really read it too much into that in terms of a goalkeeping position, as far as I can see. So this to me looks like the starting position for the season. Joe Hart, number 1, Siegrist back up. Scott Bain, just there to collect his wages by the looks of it. Absolutely mince. Anyway, that's what it is. The caveat to this, and obviously this is important because we're going to go through and talk about the other positions. Rodgers did say in a video with Sky the other day that Celtic won't be looking to spend 10 or 15 million on a player. So he's talking about the transfer model in terms of bringing in guys, developing younger players, all that type of stuff. We'll come back to guys like Noroki, Yang Hyun Hyun, and Kwon Hyuk Kyu. That's easy for me to say in terms of the policy and things, but I'd be quite surprised if we spend big money on a goalkeeper now. But if you go and buy Joe Hart now, or if you're holding Joe Hart, you've got to understand that there's a risk involved in that. The risk is he's out of contract at the end of the season, and I just don't see him moving just now. I don't see that happening. But also, I don't see Celtic spending big in a goalkeeper. The natural thing to do with Joe Hart being important in the dressing room, even though he did a sort of poorish season last season, with him being out of contract next year but on a big wage, is for him to play this year and then be on his way. And I think everyone's kind of in consensus on that. So, when it gets to the end of the transfer window in a few weeks, I'm sure Joe Hart will rise because Celtic will want the number one goalkeeper and all that type of stuff. But that's where we are with it. Defensive wise, so first name here, Mike Noroki. So he came in for a £4 million fee. So this is part of the thinking in connection with the Starfelt move. I just don't know at the moment, obviously, who's going to be first choice here. Now, with Noroki, obviously, you can get his stats, you can look into him, but Celtic have gone and spent money on a defender. Now, I do think Celtic actually needed a bit of cover in terms of centre-half, so I don't mind that so much in terms of Celtic going and spending money, but that's a similar fee to what we paid for Starfelt. I think from what Rodgers is doing so far in terms of friendlies, we're going to go with 4 at the back, and there's only 2 centre-half places. So Cameron Carter-Vickers was about £7 million. Starfelt was £4 million a few seasons back, and this guy's come in, and one of them is going to sit on the bench. So Noroki has no card yet, so I'm not going to go over him any further, and we'll come back to him when we get to Starfelt. Uragidi, I think, is now left, so I think he's just an opt thing. He's still shown there. Liam Scales, interesting one. He was out on loan last season at Aberdeen. Did pretty well there, I think, as well, and played pretty well against Wolves, but I think he's just going to be a backup option. I'd imagine as things develop and everybody's all fit, centre-half wise, etc., that he might move on again, maybe another loan to a SPFL club or maybe a team down south or whatever. He looked okay against Wolves, there's no doubt about it. He did look okay, but I think Celtic have got better players in that position as well. Alistair Johnson, right back. So this guy is the Celtic right back, I would say. He was excellent since he's come in. His performance level has been superb. He's got an ankle injury just now, so currently I don't think he'll be back for any of the initial games. So Celtic will get Ross County at home the following Saturday. So this is like coming up the next game week. Ross County home, following Saturday, Aberdeen away. The next weekend is Kilmarnock away in the Cup, so there's an SO5 break. The next weekend is St Johnstone at home, which is a tasty fixture. They're pretty poor. Hammered by I think Albion Rovers recently, or hammered by a team from the lower division basically recently. And next game is Rangers away, so it's not the easiest of starts, but good game at the weekend and good game obviously against St Johnstone at home as well. But Alistair Johnson wise, he could be out for another 5 or 6 weeks, so his sort of estimated time in terms of getting back, I think, is September. So again, we'll come back to talking about that position in a wee minute. Yuki Kobayashi, yeah, I mean, obviously he got his chance a wee bit last season. He is currently injured just now, so you don't see him in squads or whatever. There's no need to panic. But again, Yuki is a backup option. I don't know whether or not he'll be good enough. He does have advantages over some of the other centre-halves in that he's left-footed. So the advantage over maybe Starfelt, etc., is, play some games. He looks comfortable on the ball. But also, it's a high level required, obviously, of a Celtic defender. You need to be able to defend, and he's not as good at duels as like Starfelt, etc. He's just maybe not as good a defender yet. But he is only 23, adapting to the league, and he's maybe one to keep an eye out on, or maybe even you get him and he goes back to the J League or whatever, or he gets a move, gets more game time. It looks as if he is getting quite strong. He's been obviously working in the gym, but he isn't a big, strong guy. Obviously, he's a different type of player from other centre halves. Boston Lawal, I think he's been linked with some moves away and stuff, but maybe more of a collection piece. So I've watched a few of the Celtic sort of reserve games or whatever, and I don't know how highly I actually rate him. I don't think he's near to breaking into the first team, but obviously if you're maybe buying him at auction as part of a collection, just one you want to sit on, he is 20. He's not that expensive, obviously, and if you're happy to spend a few quid in terms of the limited side or 20, 30 quid or whatever for a rare, then it's a reasonable punt for the future. But I'm not recommending you buy him. I'm just saying we're discussing him here. Bernaby is an interesting one. So obviously Bernaby and Greg Taylor both had games during the sort of pre-season, etc. And I say I'll come back to talking about Greg Taylor because I haven't actually talked about him already. So look at the amount of defenders we've got on. We've got a lot of defenders on the actual books here. Anyway, Bernaby came in from Lanus. I think Celtic paid about 3 million for him. Always played last season. He had a few injuries. I like him as a player. He's got specific qualities. He likes to get forward. He's got energy, but he's not a very good defender. So he might well play some roles for Celtic, maybe in games where he needs to be more attacking. Rodgers might develop him as well. He's only a young guy. He's obviously moved over a strange country, come Argentina. So Scotland, strange country. Nobody take offence to that. I'm just joking. So he is a young guy, and there's been plenty of other guys who've come to us and have flourished. So he's obviously got potential, but he's quite a good attacking player. But he's a bit rough around the edges at the moment. Not very good defender as far as I can see. Not maybe as solid in a back four, that type of thing. So I say we'll come back to left back position with Greg Taylor. So I don't think Bernaby is the left back at the moment, as far as I can see. Cameron Carter-Vickers, interestingly, is back and is starting against Bilbao tonight. So he had a knee clean-up over the summer. Obviously missed a lot of things in terms of pre-season games, but he was back at main training, and I think he had some bounce games with the B team or whatever as well. Interestingly, obviously, he started tonight, although it will just be for a half. I think he'll play on Saturday. I honestly think he'll play. I think they've just been keeping him in cotton wool with that knee injury, and he never featured in squads and stuff when Celtic were in Portugal. He never played in the games, but he did go with the team, and he obviously was training and stuff. So I think that he'll play. And Starfelt's the man beside him, and actually Carter-Vickers played a role in the decision to sell Starfelt. So I've said this before in one of the previous videos if you've been watching them all, but in a fortunate position to have two Carter-Vickers super rares, and also obviously owning a Carter-Vicker rares and some limited as well. So when I was deciding on Starfelt in terms of maybe just sort of de-risking that position and what's going to happen, etc. Yeah, it would have been nice still to have Starfelt, but if he stays and he's the number one centre back or whatever, I can maybe re-add him when the new cards come if I feel like that's the right thing to do. But I just decided to move away from that strategy at the moment. So there were a couple of reasons. I'm not saying just go and sell Starfelt, but there's an obvious risk here in that one, we've got a new manager in. So, he could have different thoughts, and he's sanctioned £4 million signing of a centre half. The second thing is, will Starfelt score as well as we did last season? So Rodgers plays a different sort of style of game. So when Andrew was playing against teams at home, everybody would be pushed up, and he would like to pin teams back. And you've seen Starfelt sort of marauding into the other half and final third passes and all that type of stuff. So under Rodgers, if Starfelt obviously is the number one centre back alongside Carter-Vickers, he might not quite score as well too, just because it's slightly different type of style that Rodgers plays. So all those things were all factored into my decision. He could be excellent. I mean, he could start at the weekend, be excellent, but again, he is in the squad for the Bilbao game tonight, and I think he'll play in the team for the second half. But I've sold him. I've made my decision. I'm not saying I'm not going to re-add him or whatever, but we are in the middle of a transfer window. and just bear that in mind, guys, that there's always risks associated. I'm not, I don't know, maybe he'll go to Saudi Arabia, maybe Jota will give him the big guns and say, oh, Benzema, maybe you want Starfelt to come over here or whatever, but you never know. Al Ettifaq signed Jack Hendry, but the talk of the move was, I think, to Russia, which seems natural because he came from Russia, but I'm not sure I see him going there, to be honest. But let's see. I think that Celtic needed a centre-half based on the sort of depth we've got, or not just the depth, the actual quality of players. Anthony Ralston, back in the Bilbao squad tonight, hasn't played much, has been injured. So Iwata is actually listed as a mid, and I think Iwata will start at right back against Ross County. I think that's pretty nailed, to be honest. He's played a lot of the pre-season games at right back, and obviously with Alistair Johnson out, Ralston will probably come into that position before Johnson's back. But, it depends how Iwata does as well. If Iwata's playing really well, Rodgers might not drop him. Stephen Welsh, I've seen there, obviously I'd picked up a Stephen Welsh, so a couple of reasons, obviously, buff out that collection. He's under 23. Played for Scotland under 21s. I think he was captain as well. He is a decent player, but bear in mind that Celtic didn't win a treble by playing decent players, so very much a backup option. And who knows, maybe if he might move on to somewhere if everyone's fit soon. Greg Taylor. So again, this is subject to the big sale. It wasn't an easy decision to sell a Celtic Unique. Obviously getting into a position to have Celtic Uniques was a difficult thing for me to do in the first place, but sometimes you just got to make a decision, and I love wee Greg. I think he was really good under Ange, and again that was sort of formed part of my thinking. So under Ange, he played like the inverted fullback, so when we were in possession of the ball, Greg Taylor was actually a lot playing in midfield and things, and he had a brilliant relationship with Maeda as well. We'll come back to the selections. I think Greg Taylor most likely will start against Ross County on Saturday as well. But if there was an area of the squad we might be looking to improve, maybe a left back might be that position. So there's obviously always risks during a transfer window, and when that big offer came in, I just decided to take it and move in a different direction. Obviously I've covered that off in the other video about getting the Alisson Super Rare and stuff in, but yeah, I mean, if anybody ever said to you, oh, you'll sell Greg Taylor Unique and you'll sell Starfelt Super Rare and you'll sign a Alisson Super Rare and you'll still have Ethereum left over, well, people might have thought that you were actually sniffing glue or something. So, Greg Taylor, he's a good player. Just because I've sold him doesn't mean you need to sell him, but be aware of the risks. I think he's the odds-on favourite to start on Saturday against Ross County, but what happens after that, I'm not sure. To touch on that specific point, Rodgers did say that there won't be anybody coming in this week, but there might be movement next week. So, news on any incomings should be pretty soon. Kwon Hyuk Kyu looked okay when he came on against Wolves. Looked like quite a big, sort of elegant type guy. Obviously quite a defensive-minded guy. I think he'll give us an option in the squad. Interestingly, starting tonight with more of the first team type guys against Bilbao, maybe just giving him some minutes. I don't think he'll be a starter at any point soon, but a useful squad player. I haven't bought him yet. If I'm going to buy these guys who are the backups, I'll probably just wait and just buy them with the new season cards, hopefully, when they're out. Tomike Iwata is an interesting one, listed as a midfielder here. If you can get one of the old defender cards, that's probably, or is the card I think you should buy. I forgot to say earlier, Alistair Johnson has old midfield cards as well. If you buy an Alistair Johnson, make sure you pick up a defender card. That's where he's currently been minted for Celtic, but just be careful of that if you're on the market. Iwata has played a lot of the games at right back so far, so I fully expect he'll start at right back on Saturday against Ross County. Just makes sense, even with Ralston back in the squad tonight, he's not played any minutes or anything yet, and I just don't see why he would take Iwata out of that position. Ismail Soro, I think, still on the books, but I don't know if he's actually officially still in the squad. Odin Holm is an interesting one. Again, no card, came from Vålerenga, really highly rated. So one of these guys who started playing a lot for his team in Norway when he was like 16 or 17. Pretty highly rated. Hasn't really properly sort of kicked on, and obviously Celtic have picked him up for a few million. I think he could be a wee bit of a dark horse this season. Obviously, there's a couple of things here. You're going to have to wait for the new cards because it doesn't have any cards now. You might get a flavour of how he's going to play from then, because you'll see there's been a few games and you see how he's featuring. Is he coming off the bench or whatever? But you can pretty much pick Celtic's sort of front six at the moment. It's McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly, Maeda, Furuhashi and Abada, and I'll come back to talking about the forwards. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. I think one maybe when the auctions come to pick up for your collections and your squad, and he might be good. It does look pretty good, but I've seen loads of videos of guys who look good and they've turned out to be absolutely mince. So he's a young player, highly rated, and Celtic are believing in their scouting system in terms of bringing him in. Ben Summers, a guy I bought a rare of. Again, I think maybe someone who Celtic might let go out and get a bit of game time. He was Academy Player of the Year, so I mentioned that in the previous video. So the good thing about Summers and Vata just now is you're getting the rookie cards. So if you buy them from obviously the auction just now, you're getting loads of points towards your collection because you're getting the first owner. You're getting the rookie card in terms of being a sort of special design and things as well. So bear in mind when we get to next season's cards, these guys won't be rookie cards anymore. So if you want to go that way, obviously worth picking up. A talented player. Don't think he'll feature much in the first team this season, but hopefully he'll get some game time out on loan. Rocco Vata, again a talented player. He's looked pretty good when he's come on. It was really rough around the edges. He's a really young player, obviously. He's not, I don't think, ready to take over from Jota or whatever at the moment, but there's already talk of 1 year left in his deal and some clubs maybe down south and everything sniffing around. Might be one of those where maybe Celtic lose him actually, and I hope we don't, but if we do, he might go somewhere and then get a loan out or whatever. So again, he's not that cheap in terms of the rare, but that reflects the fact it's a rookie card, so useful towards collections, and he looks talented. Matt O'Reilly, can I say, obviously you're talking about Matt O'Reilly's number one fan here, takes the set pieces. Can't see anything that's suggesting that's not continuing at the moment. So yeah, I think one of the things that really happened a lot under Ange, we were discussing this in the Celts Are Here podcast there with Quinny and Mark Patrick Rare, is that Ange a lot used to take guys off at 60 minutes as well. Whereas I think with Rodgers, after you get a few games in, you kind of know what team he favours, and also he might not do that thing where he just starts taking people off at 60 minutes, and that'll really benefit guys like Matt O'Reilly, because if Matt O'Reilly's on all the corners, all the set plays, etc., then an extra 10-15 minutes per game to take more corners, etc., will maybe add a few points on his average. Anyway, I'm preaching myself to the converted. I own his unique. I've got his 2 rares. I've got his 1 out of 100. I've got 3 limited. I don't have a super rare yet. Not managed to pick one up, but I think he's a good player. He's young, talented, takes set pieces, and if he's playing for Celtic, you want one. That's the end of that story. Rio Hatate, so everyone will probably know Rio by now because obviously he's been on the platform with Frontale before and came to Celtic. One of the good things about Jota going is that Celtic have been able to keep players. So McGregor signed a new deal, Maeda signed a new deal, Furuhashi signed a new deal. Hatate has not signed a new deal, but has a few years left on his deal. So he's talked about the EPL a couple of times in terms of interviews, and I think he's got his heart set on moving to a higher level. But this guy is an absolute baller. And honestly, if he trots up an EPL club, people start giving it, oh, who's that guy that we're signing from Scotland? I think he will definitely prove people wrong, because he's an excellent footballer. I'm not going in this part of it and showing scores and all that type of stuff, but he scores well on Sorare too, because he's just such a lovely player. The other thing to watch out here is mention a mid, so he's been minted at the moment as a mid. He does have defender cards kicking around, so if you can pick up one of those Celtic limited defender cards, or even better, if you get a rare or a super rare one, wow, what a card. But there's not many of those, and they're always really expensive, and they do score couple of points higher just because of obviously the 10 points for a clean sheet. But interestingly, such a good all-round player that the defender, mid and the forward cards all score pretty similar. And actually, when things come out, Celtic weren't keeping many clean sheets at that point when the cards were sort of coming out, etc. And actually, the highest average was the forward card, but not just a case of averages. Obviously, you've got to look at peak scores, and the defender card has the highest of the peak scores, I think. So if you can get them and you can't get the defender card, which is pretty hard, then any of the other scarcities are fine. And if you're buying the forward card, that might just depend, obviously, whether you own like Furuhashi or Abada or that type of thing. James McCarthy, Mince, doesn't he play? Don't know why he get a deal. Too much money. Celtic can't get rid of him. Rubbish. David Turnbull, shown here as 24. I think he is actually just turned 24, so that means, as far as I'm aware, I think he's still under 23s at the moment. So, an interesting one because he is a good player, but he just doesn't really have much of an actual sort of engine. He scores really well in Sorare, and I remember people, Fantasy Teller, I think paid like £40,000 for the unique, and he was going for mental money. But really, Ange had brought in Hatate, and Turnbull did all his best stuff for Celtic when Hatate wasn't there. So we're under a different manager now, but it looks very much from pre-season that Turnbull's still a backup. If he got himself away and he got down to a championship club or whatever, and he was on set pieces, he'd be a lovely card to own. But he doesn't have much of an engine, so he would really need a team that want to accommodate him being in the midfield. So be careful of that, because you do see with these guys that they're just the type of player that are rotation fodder, and people can understand it because he scores so well and so rare, and I know he does, but for Celtic he's a bench warmer. Very Kwasi, I don't even know if he's still in the books. Cal McGregor, well, what can we say about Cal Mac? 30 years old, won everything at Celtic bar obviously a European trophy, everything domestically, won loads and loads of trophies, plays every game, captain, signed a 5-year deal, averages well, may well get a wee bit further forward under Rodgers. Let's see how the system works out. Was really good under Rodgers before. Obviously, that was a few years back, etc. But yeah, a good card to own, particularly if you can get maybe a rare or a super rare, etc. The reason I say that in limited wise, obviously, to win limited tournaments, a lot of times you need huge scores, and McGregor does, look, when he gets a goal or assist, put in good scores, but he's not been getting a lot of goals or assists, so you've got to factor that in. James Forrest, well, testimonial tonight. What a servant he's been to the club, absolutely brilliant. Superb, but very much a backup. Still got it under contract just now, will come in and fill in. A good pro, get a good guy to have around, happy to come in as a backup. And we're just coming out to talk about the forward. So what you will see here is Celtic have got a lot of players, but we do have a lot of players. So there might be a few of these guys will go out. Obviously, Barkas has already had his contract torn up and he's away back to Utrecht. Connor Hazard's already moved on. Small fee for him and that type of stuff. Into the forward, so Jan Hyung Jun, forward, come in from Gangwon. I don't really know much about him. Obviously, he's got some SL5 stats and everything as well, which are pretty poor, but you would expect that being obviously a team that's pretty much threatened by relegation, etc. I think he's very much squad player. I did watch a wee bit of him against Wolves, and he looks as if he's got a bit of ability, but I don't really see him ousting like a Bada or anything at the moment. But again, you want to pick one up. His midfield cards and forward cards, I think probably preference would be to get a forward card. Maybe keep an eye out for him with the new cards coming out, or when the new cards come out. Michael Johnson, he was out on loan in Portugal and did pretty well there actually. It's a guy who got his chance under Rodgers the last time, but he's injured at the moment, so he's out for, I think, at least a month, maybe slightly longer. So that's a shame. Seems quite a tricky player, Michael Johnson. It's a type of guy who could develop, but he has had some problems with injuries, and I just don't really see him forcing his way into the Celtic team just now. But it might be a guy you might want to pick up maybe on the cheap when the new cards come, or even picking up one of the cards just now when people kind of get a bit bored because he's injured just now and he's not getting in the team. You never know, he might end up back in Portugal or whatever, and he did do pretty well there. I think he was put in a good few scores there in Portugal. Definitely some games he was scoring 1 and 2 goals, all that type of stuff. Not every week, but he was contributing. Marco Tilio, so it's a young guy who came over from Australia. Not a guy I know a huge amount about, but was kind of part of Melbourne sort of City Group connection. Seems to be sort of reasonably highly rated. Again, a bit of a sort of wild card type selection. Also injured at the moment. So yeah, Celtic have a lot of players, but actually a lot of players injured at the moment. Anyway, there's no cards for him just now. But again, a guy maybe to tuck away and maybe get involved with as part of a collection, or maybe as some backup cover, or just if you're a Celtic fan, you just want to buy the whole squad like me. I just want everybody. Just greedy, I just want everybody. Apart from Albion Ajeti, because he's rubbish. Albion Ajeti obviously was a sort of, not a big name signing, but it was Celtic paid about $4.5 million, I think, to sign him from West Ham. He'd moved to West Ham, he'd been scoring goals in Switzerland, never really done it at West Ham, never really done it at Celtic. So he's on the books just now, but I'd expect maybe he'll get moved on. I think he's going quite cheap at the moment. It's not that expensive, but obviously, you would only be buying him, I think, as a sort of view to maybe he's going to go and play in Switzerland again and do okay there. I kind of like him, actually. I've seen him play like a good few games. I remember Celtic some European games and he was doing okay, but he's never really cemented a place. And if you can't really score goals for Celtic or whatever, then there's a problem, because we're creating a lot of chances, etc. But you never know. He's had the injury issue and things as well, and he is pretty cheap. Hyunjie Oh, well, obviously O has already come over. He's already got cards. Very much a backup in terms of the position with Furuhashi. Different style of player to Furuhashi, so a bit stronger, can hold the ball in. Comes on more as an impact sub. But I like his personality, I like him. I think he's a guy, he's not featured a lot at the moment under Rodgers in terms of obviously minutes and stuff, but I think he's a guy who's young and can develop, and obviously at the right price, if you're playing Celtic stacks, etc., if you want to pick him up as a wee sort of backup in case somebody gets an injury, then not a bad buy at all. He's already scored a few goals. Side Haksabanovic, bloody hell, Celtic have got a lot of players. I've spoken for half an hour about this squad. It's a big squad. Side Haksabanovic has now been minted as a forward card, I think. I've certainly got the forward card. Again, a player I like. He's not really an out-and-out winger because he plays a lot on the left and he comes in his right foot, which is kind of similar to Jota, although I think Jota is probably stronger on his left foot inside. I kind of see him more as a kind of number 10 type player. I think he'd be really good, maybe, say, I don't touch wood, maybe O'Reilly wasn't available or whatever and he played more central. But again, he's not featured as heavily as Maeda, Furuhashi and Abada in the friendlies, and I don't think he's forcing his way into Rodgers' plans at the moment, but still on the 24, type of guy where if you do pick him up and, he doesn't do amazing at Celtic or whatever, might well move on to somebody else and do pretty well if he features more. Problem just now is he's more of an impact player, he's not starting as much, so you've got to factor that in. Daisen Maeda signed a new deal, been really good in pre-season, obviously playing a lot of these games against like Yokohama, who maybe give him a bit more space than he gets in Scotland. Then he was really lively against Wolves. I watched that game against Wolves. I missed a wee bit at the start, but Maeda, Furuhashi, Leo Abada, that's the front three as far as I can see at the moment. Maeda's been in fine form. Hat trick against Yokohama. Missed a few chances against Wolves, so some of that creeping in, and that's maybe his downfall. As a guy who plays out on the left. He's not got much of a left foot. Probably would be slightly better through the middle, but maybe not as clinical as Furuhashi. But his pressing metrics and everything are all absolutely mental, and it's one of these guys where he contributes a lot to the team. So his Sorare scores aren't brilliant, but also bear in mind that Jota has now left. So unless Celtic bring a big name in that sort of wide position, you might see Maeda, Furuhashi, and Abada are pretty nailed to play or at least start. See where the goals and the assists come from, etc. there. Rodgers might also play a way that suits a bit more. So I mentioned earlier that Ange was playing this style where everybody was all pushed up, which means that obviously you're really pressing and pinning people in. That doesn't necessarily suit Maeda, because Maeda's not a guy like Jota who's going to drop shoulder or run and do jinking stuff. Maeda's either a pressing off the ball guy, or a guy who's got movement to run in behind, or a guy who's going to destroy somebody with pace. But if Celtic do sit a wee bit deeper, naturally that allows even a wee bit more space, maybe at home as well. But again, a guy who's signed a new contract, Rodgers seems to really like as well. The fans really like him. Some fans don't like him from a point of view of maybe they think he's puts in a lot of effort, but in terms of out and out quality, but still quite a young guy at 25 as well. Furuhashi, well, could we say about Furu? He wasn't featuring much in the pre-season games up to now, but then he did start against Wolves, and he started the game tonight. I think he'll start at the weekend. They had to this shoulder thing as well. I think Celtic have just been careful of that and easing him in. At the end of the day, these are friendly games and stuff, so no point going daft and getting somebody injured and they're completely snookered or whatever for months. So I think he's been sort of nurtured back in the same way as Carter Vickers has. Finally, Lila Abada, excellent pre-season. I think a guy who's been sort of not resurrected under Rodgers, but you could see at times under Ange that Ange favoured Maeda and Jota. But even watching the game against Wolves at the weekend, he looked really sharp. He doesn't do a base like Jota does, so Abada's maybe a guy whose strengths are he's quick, he's good off the ball, got an eye for goal. Somebody gets down the wing on the other side, he gets himself in at the back post, he scored goals against Rangers. It's just that he's a terrific player, he really is, but he's not the same type of player as a Jota or Haksabanovic type player. I mentioned Jota a lot here because obviously I'll come back to the discussion on that at the end in terms of transfer plans, etc. But Abada very much looks like he's very sharp, he's looking full of confidence. I think he'll start at the weekend and a really good option to have, obviously, from a forward perspective. So we're going to have a look at some lineups and stuff here, but before we do that, transfer plans. So as I said earlier, remember, if you're buying Celtic players at the moment, the window's still open. Celtic still have cash available after the big transfer out of Jota. Rodgers specifically said he understands the club's model, probably not going to spend 12 to 15 million or whatever on one player, but there might be transfer news next week, i.e. after Ross County. And that has been factored into my decision to take, obviously, the incoming bid from Flow State for Greg Taylor, Unique, and for Starfelt. So I don't regret it. If Starfelt and Vickers are first choice centre halves or whatever, I still don't regret it. I could buy him back, I could buy a rare, I could just say I want to go a different way SO5 wise, could build a Fenerbahce stack, or I could get someone from Benfica. I don't know. I want Celtic stacks, but I'm just saying that you've got to factor these things in. And Jota has already gone to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if anybody else at Celtic's vulnerable are going to Saudi Arabia, but hopefully at this point, no. But after that Zellerai and stuff and everything, so there we go. So we're going to go into All-Star Unique. Actually, this will be the first time I've played All-Star Unique since I won it the last time, so it's pretty surreal that. Mad, written in the stars. But Celtic versus Ross County, I mean, Celtic took 5 off Aberdeen, and in all honesty, Ross County are pretty terrible. So if you're going to have a opportunity to stack Celtic, this might not be a bad one, to be honest. Apologies, I don't know why, but the camera has stopped working. If anybody can get to the bottom of why my camera just keeps randomly doing this, I would be much appreciated. But it stopped working, so I'm going to wrap up soon. Another wee 5 minutes of picking, and then we'll go from there. So Joe Hart, obviously, as said earlier, natural selection here. This is where it gets interesting, right? So we've got options. We've got Vickers, we've got Greg Taylor. If we're going to full Celtic stack, obviously. In here, obviously, remember this is All-Star Unique, so I've got to use a super rare defender because I don't have a unique defender. Rostovski's a great option actually against Gorica, but they've got qualifiers and everything on the go just now. An interesting one I'm going to throw out here, and this is my provisional selection, was Iwata. So obviously I've got the defender card here. In all honesty, If I think that Vickers is going to play, then I think, the natural selection here is going to be Carter Vickers, but I'll need to make a decision on that. Matt O'Reilly goes without saying, that decision. We only have, obviously, uniques available now for selection, so I can't pick any of these other guys. It's going to have to be Furuhashi, and then Jordan Larson or Io Tanaka. Larson's been really good, actually, so that would probably be my natural selection. So, in here, obviously, if we're a weekend or so on and the EPL's back, I'll have options of Andy Robertson, etc. unique in there, but this will probably be the selection in here. Again, my face is frozen. I apologise profusely for that in terms of the technology. It's the good old software. If I go to actually restart the camera now, then the whole thing goes kaput. So I'm going to finish with one more selection and then we'll wrap it up. So for a sort of Challenger Europe Rare Pro type selection, again, Joe Hart would be my natural selection. In here, obviously, I might de-risk a wee bit in terms of Carter Vickers. So a couple of interesting options here. Could go Rostovsky. Could go Douglas Santos against Dynamo. So, just scores mad amounts. But for the purpose of this video, obviously, we're talking about stacks. A Wata defender card is a good one. Midfield wise, so obviously then you've got these other options like could play Kalmack, which is quite an interesting selection. Obviously, could play Matt O'Reilly, could play Rio Hatate as the mid card. Hatate's been playing really well actually, so I think in there obviously I might go slightly different from All Star Unique and go for Hatate. Up front, obviously it leaves me with these options. So I've got like a Bada Super Rare now. I might reserve that card, I think, for under 23s. So I'll probably go something along the lines of Furuhashi Super Rare. And then in the defensive position, I could go, maybe a Douglas Santos differential. We're talking about Celtic here, so I think in that position, you could stack the defence. Or I could just go in with a Matt O'Reilly actually. So then that's pretty strong. I think overall, could double captain Matt O'Reilly or maybe de-risk it a wee bit and go with Hatate. Obviously O'Reilly usually puts up the bases, but probably for the purpose of this one, go Hatate. So Joe Hart, Iwata, Hatate, Matt O'Reilly and Kyogo. I'll review this like compared to my other teams and stuff as well. This is just for the general sort of lineup builder. Obviously, Futudai has won the giveaway and he's running selections, so this won't be my selection. This will be his selection. But if I was running something here, obviously in terms of limited, it'd probably go along the lines of Joe Hart. With the doubt about the sort of defence, etc., might be a good chance to play the old Hatate defender card. Look at that, 16% Hatate defender card, brilliant. Also lets me go in here with Matt O'Reilly. Now you see if I'm leaving out McGregor here. Well, the reason for that is O'Reilly tends to do higher peaks, right? Then we've got obviously options here like Furu. And then again here, do you want to stack the defence? If you want to risk Carter Vickers, may well have a very good game. Obviously, he's just back, so a wee bit more risky. If people don't play him, could be more of a differential type pick, but I'm expecting goals. So I think here, probably go something along the lines of the big Leo Abada 14%. And again, selection-wise here, maybe just rather than going Riley captain and everything, maybe go Hatate, that type of thing. So there we go. Apologise for my face freezing. You'll now see me just looking as if I've been paralysed. I've not been paralysed. I've not been paralysed in Guinness. I've not even opened a Guinness. It's just the camera, so I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to wrap up the video now. I hope everyone's enjoyed the video. That's a full rundown on obviously what's been happening with Celtic. And again, I'm just saying, Rodgers has specifically said there might be incomings after the Ross County game, so I think you've just got to be mindful just now if you're going to spend on Celtic, etc., that we're in the middle of a transfer window as well. Good luck, everyone. Enjoy Celtic being back. I'll definitely enjoy it. Be having a few Guinness, be watching the game. I think we'll trounced Ross County. I hope I'm not wrong there. But I'm hoping that it'll be a good, successful weekend for SO5. Thanks very much, guys. See you all soon.